So first off today is going to be Dr. David Maslach, and he's going to be talking about his solution for his platform for non-rejectable papers and grants, as well as what it was that drove him to get to that point, and the challenges that people and adversity that people face in trying to get their papers published and reviewed. And I am going to turn it over to Dr. David.
All right. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up.
I can.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm David Maslach. I'm an associate professor of innovation at Florida State University. And I did my PhD. I have an undergrad in chemical engineering at the University of Waterloo. Then I did my PhD at the Ivy Business School, all in Canada. I'm Canadian. And during this process, I was really struggled with writing. It was a really difficult thing for me to learn how to write. And later on in life, I found out that I had ADHD and struggled with writing throughout the process. And it was always really striking when I was doing research that if you didn't have good mentors throughout the process, that a lot of people would be lost. And, even if you do have good mentors, you often get lost within the research process. And one day when I was driving home from Disney with my kids, I have two small kids. We live in Tallahassee, and I was driving along from Disney, and I had this inspiration that why isn't it that we don't have more help with the research process? What is going on there? So I actually went back to my department chair and I said, I need some help with writing. And it turned out, state institution. I love my state. By the way, I'm not representing my Florida State University. I'm representing reciprocity. But I love my state institution, but they just didn't have the funds to help me with some of the writing. And so I thought, as somebody that teaches innovation and entrepreneurship, why don't I do that? And so I mulled on it and started thinking about this. What would it look like to create a platform to help us write and to do research and to do all of the things that we need to do? Why isn't there something like that? The quintessential thing, if you just type in PhDs on the internet and you start looking at PhD funny, every single joke is about the sort of misery or depression or whatever that PhDs go through. And it's because doing research is a really, really challenging thing, right? If you've ever done this, research is fantastically difficult. That, the whole process is difficult. You're trying to figure things out. And right now, the way that it's sort of set up is you kind of have this master model that was set up from, the 1400s, right? So you have the master, you have the Michelangelo that's teaching the next person in line how to actually do this. And if you don't have a good mentor, a lot of people they struggle inside. In fact, if you start looking at the academic research on PhDs and scientists and researchers in terms of how they feel about things or, the experiences that you'll find surprisingly shocking statistics that they have depression and anxiety rates that are twice as much as the normal population. I just saw a recent paper that came out, slightly lower depression and anxiety rates, but it's causal. So they actually tracked people. They tracked a cohort and multiple cohorts. One went to a PhD and the other one didn't. And the ones that did a PhD, accounting for differences between the ones that did a PhD, they actually had increased rates of depression and anxiety. So, why is that the case? Why are we really struggling with this? Part of it is because it's isolating. The whole process is isolating when you're doing it. And it's also demotivating because there's often, despite the fact that people talk about feedback, the feedback happens not very often, right? If you're actually sitting there and you're spending most of your time in front of your screen and you're getting feedback every month, maybe if you're lucky, you're getting every couple of weeks. You're also getting, feedback almost always is negative. Why didn't you do this? This is a problem here. This should be clarified. And it could be even extreme. There's jokes all over the internet about reviewer two. Reviewer two is this mythical person that when you send your paper for scientific review or a grant for scientific review, reviewer two is the one that's kind of outside of the domain, and they're usually ruthless, right? Like there's comments like you're a complete idiot and all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, why are we doing this? What is going on? And I kept thinking, why is this so hard? There has to be a better way when I do this. And so I mulled on this, and then I thought, hey, why don't I try to put a team together in Tallahassee? That did not work. I tried to get a team together, it fell apart. And so what I ended up having to do is I got a contract developer in the Ukraine, and that fell apart. So then I found another contract developer in India, and my wife and I have been personally funding 100% myself and her. We're funding this platform where we're trying to provide the end goal is to imagine a platform where it will walk you through, and the end goal is a non-rejectable research paper or a non-rejectable grant, then it will take anybody at any skill level. So imagine somebody at grade 9, and they will get feedback along the way, coaching along the way. And it could be machine-based coaching, right, which we've built in. It could be human-based coaching, which we've also built in. And until we get to the point where we actually have a really good scientific product. And it doesn't allow you to proceed until you do all of these different steps. And so you're building this scientific research article as you go, and you're getting a lot of positive feedback along the way. And so that was the birth of the Reciprocity Project. And before you asked, the Reciprocity was taken. So I put in 3, and then that was not taken as a domain. And so that's why we have the 3 in there. So the way that
David,
yes.
Really quick, you don't have slides up. I don't know if you wanted your slides up.
Oh, I am so sorry. Why didn't that happen? Let me see.
I wasn't sure because you're an animated talker, so I didn't know if you wanted them up or not.
Yeah, I do have slides. Did that work?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So in case, we'll go back. Beginning, Disney, the slide about why things are really, really difficult. And then this is where we are with the Reciprocity platform. And the goal is to figure out how to create a platform where the end goal is a non-rejectable research paper or grant. And what would that look like if anybody at any skill level could be coached and developed along the way to get this non-rejectable research paper and grant, right? So the way that I'm doing this is viewing the whole research process in the normal way that we view the research process as a sort of master apprentice approach, and revolutionizing it and make it into an engineering problem where we're simply solving.
I want to stop you there for a second, David. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to do this to you. I apologize.
I love it. Yeah.
At what point should a researcher engage reciprocity? I mean, obviously, during the research, you're not writing the paper. At the end is when you start, or towards the end is when you start writing the paper. But would it be more beneficial if they engaged early on in the research process?
So with the type of research that I'm used to, writing the paper is the sort of challenging part, or writing the grant is the challenging part, where you're coming up with the idea, you're thinking about it, and you're trying to iterating to the point where you actually have something that's actually clear, right? So the process might begin with a research question, right? Or looking at a particular domain, you're sort of looking through all of this data, but there's already a lot of sort of library type things out there, like Google Scholar, for example. You can go and search for things. But if you're new to this area and you're new to research, you don't know where to begin, right? Anybody that has had, that has worked in research, will tell you they feel completely lost and it's completely uncertain and ambiguous. You don't know where to begin. You always feel like you're making mistakes a lot. That's the way that it kind of feels. And so the idea is, how do we turn the sort of raw idea or the belief that you could do something to this end product? And the reason why I actually have this screen up here is I worked as a chemical engineer and we designed software. Some of you might know because some of you are in this industry. Aspen Tech, many years, developed this software that was for processing chemicals, right? So you had this raw product at the beginning. So imagine bitumen in an oil sand someplace. It's a raw product that's like tar sands, that's what people call it. And then at the end, by the time you go through all this sort of refining process, that you have this amazing chemical at the end that it's been synthesized and it's a good product, right? So the idea is to imagine that kind of way, beginning of this sort of raw, nobody knows what they're doing with this idea, and sort of walking people through slowly, using their own ideas to get to the point where they actually have something that's pretty decent. And now, when I recognize non-rejectable is not possible. Right. In an ideal world, that would be possible. But the idea is to get it so it's so good that it meets a lot of the quality control checks a lot of people have. And maybe eventually a journal will take this and run with it. And they'll say, hey, it's been processed through the reciprocity platform to the point that it's actually pretty decent. And maybe we can accept it as, as is, because we know it sort of met all of these different steps along the way. Does that make sense? All right, I'll take this silence as it is, right? So what does that actually look like, or what have we actually built into this platform? So I have models that people have used before, and it's all based in the sharing economy. That's how I was actually framing this initially. And that the sharing economy is this idea where we bring these people together and we match people together on a platform. It's called a multi-sided platform. And we match people together and then they perform a particular task where they accomplish something. So you have the writers and the editors, right? That's the input. The editors could be anybody. Part of the reason why I want to have it open is because there's this thing called citizen science. When I was in high school, and even when I went into graduate school, my mom would actually proofread some of my work, right? And she didn't finish high school, but it was just another pair of eyes that can actually go through and read and go through and say, hey, maybe that there's an issue that's here, right? So I'm viewing this very much as not only this sort of collaborative thing between people that want to volunteer and participate. I don't know who those users are. Likely the people that are interested in science and writing and things like that. But at the same time, have these tools that we have available, like AI. We have seen AI, explode in the last few years, but I've been working on this since 2015. And so we've implemented some of these things and put it into the platform. Using APIs, for example, building on OpenAI's system that they have to build in and to have graphical. We actually have a couple of screens or views where you have graphical representation of the ideas in your particular papers, and then you can identify ones that sort of cluster together, don't cluster together. And the reason why we actually called it reciprocity at the beginning is the model in science is all based on reciprocity. People don't understand this until you're in it. There is a lot of reciprocity that actually happens. And so you do good onto somebody else. So in return, somebody someplace else, it's called generalized reciprocity, will do good onto you. And hopefully somebody else will help you. So the beginning system was trying to create a credit system where people would want to volunteer for free. And if they volunteered for free and they did a good enough job, then they would actually get paid for doing the work that they're actually doing. And then the other components we've been working on very recently in the last little bit is making it a lot more fun and engaging and gamifying this a lot more so that there's a lot more silliness in it, right? So the end goal is how do we get more papers in science and nature and all those ones that are really, really good, but at the same time, have it so it's a really fun process so that people are excited. Scientists and researchers and PhDs around the world, they want to jump on this and actually want to get engaged and they want to participate and have fun because, the reason why, I know that this is a significant issue. How many of you are PhDs that are on this call? if you look at the number of people that are PhDs and aren't PhDs, there's a significant portion of people that aren't. And I guarantee at some point in your career, maybe it was early on for some of you, or it's in the recent time, that you decided science is too hard. I can't do this. This is not me. And so despite the fact that, in third grade and fourth grade, we have this tremendous push on education for science and engineering and really doing good research, right? Learning the scientific method, everybody disappears out of the scientific process because they realize at some point it's too hard and they don't want to do it. And it turns out it happens a lot in a PhD process. Dropout rates are quite high. But it happens after the PhD process. A lot of professors actually go through this same journey where they're thinking, is this for me? Why am I doing this? And I think that is not necessarily something that we want to have. We can change this. How do I know we can change this, by the way? A couple of things. The first one is, how many of you have driven in a taxi? Were you old enough to drive in a taxi? And do you remember what that experience was? It was maybe not the best experience. At least for me, it wasn't the best experience. Today, we have sharing apps like Uber, for example. And when you go in those cars, you chat with the people that are driving you around, you know them, it's a good experience. And for the most part, the drivers actually prefer to be there as well. So I know that we can change these markets. I know it actually works, right? So what do we have so far? What does this look like? It's been an ongoing journey. And it's been a long journey with doing this. And so far on the platform, I have over 4,000 users just on the platform itself. If you look at just the front page, it doesn't look that good, right? But if you go into the platform itself, you're going to see that there is a lot of significant stuff that's going on. And so my job in the next little bit is trying to change this front page and make it a lot more fun and engaging. But there are other things on the platform. So we have quizzes, for example. We have over 10,000 people that have submitted on quizzes. So there is a large, and that was only developed in the last few years. There is a large market for this. In fact, this is what we're doing now, is actually building it more into the platform. But one of the things that I really want to share, this is the more important thing. This is how I know that this is a legitimate thing, right? People reach out to me all the time. I just went to our large international scientific conference. There's 15,000 people that show up of scholars for management and innovation, entrepreneurship. And I could not walk across the hotel without somebody coming up to me, either thanking me or in tears, that they were so thankful that somebody was actually doing this. And it's very moving when somebody comes up and tells you that. I'm going to tell you, I'm kind of skipping ahead. I do have, I have some quotes of people that have told me that just in the last little bit. These are quotes that are on both my YouTube channel, I'll get to that in a minute, and on LinkedIn and various different platforms. And here's some quotes I want you just to really think about. And this is how I know this is legitimate. I can't quite figure out the platform just yet in terms of figuring out how to make this work fluidly, and that's why I need your help. But I know that this is a legitimate demand for this. Your messages and putting your experiences out have really helped me. Thanks, brother. Your posts are great to read and so encouraging. I completely resonate with your idea of happiness and breaking barriers, especially in academia. I have been isolated for 3 years now. I felt that no one could understand what I was going through. I felt like I didn't belong in academia. I graduated, but I felt like I didn't deserve it. So many words for those who are struggling like I did. Don't give up. Sending you a big hug. I know that there's other people that are just like myself going through these experiences, from very, very junior scientists to very, very senior folks, where they come up to me and give me a big hug. So building the reciprocity platform, it has been a journey. And there has been a lot that's gone on, and it's not just a technical exercise. I got these contract developers, I put it on the internet and to build this platform. And then I thought everybody would be so excited. This is back in 2016, 2017, I think is when it actually went live. I thought people were getting so excited when I put this platform on. They're going to cheer me on. They're going to say, yes, go. But what I realized when I put it on the internet, nothing happened. There's crickets. You know, the age-old story that there was crickets, right? And it was embarrassing as all get out. I spent so much money on this thing and nobody paid attention to it. And so a friend of mine that was in the tech industry said, well, why don't you do some YouTube videos? Why don't you go onto YouTube? And so I started doing some YouTube videos. At first, they were very dry. I was very shy. You can look at them. And over time, I started doing more and more of these. And I began to resonate and look to see at what people were paying attention to. And it was all about these stories about how we struggle in academia and how we struggle within the PhD process, how we struggle in research and development. And we really don't know what we're doing. And as I've done this, I've had tremendous growth, and I've been blessed to be part of this, to have people turn to me in the middle of the night. The way that I look at it now is that at 3 o'clock in the morning, you get up in the middle of the night, and I just had a video like this, by the way. You can look on the YouTube channel, you can see me. Yeah, but you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you wonder, why is this happening to me? What's going on? And hopefully you'll see my smiling face on the other side that's going to say, hey, you know what? You're going to be okay. This is what's going on. The world's complicated. You're going to be okay. And as I've done this, I've started branching off into different areas. In fact, my YouTube channel is far bigger now than my own university's YouTube channel and many universities' YouTube channel. But also I've been on many different platforms to get the word out. Now, where I am struggling, I'm starting to build this community, and there's millions and hundreds of thousands of people that have seen me at this moment. I'm struggling with a couple of things on this platform, and this is where I can turn to you for your help. We're building in gamification, a lot more gamification into it, but it's not yet there. I am doing this myself with contract developers. I need to build a team. I need to get people together, and I need to figure out how to address this problem on a much larger scale. It's not just me that's going through this, and it's not just my followers that are going through this as well. A lot of people go through this in all parts of the scientific community, where they're struggling to figure out how to put this stuff together and they don't know what to do. But we can change this. We can change it with things like gamification. You can see what we're developing right here, where you build your research question along the way, and then you get rewarded based on where you actually fit within the research question. You do other things to make it so it's fun and exciting and people want to get up and enjoy the process. And if anybody that has done innovation or that has done science will completely understand this mystery that we go through in terms of searching for the thing that we're trying to find. I know that there is a market demand. My wife and I have been funding this, and my wife, she's an amazing human being, but man, she's starting to question where we are and what we're doing. So I'm at a point where I need some help with funding and grants. I applied for a SBIR grant last year by myself, and it got rejected. And it was actually, I think, in my view, it actually was there was pretty good response. 2 of the reviewers were very empathetic with what I was trying to do. I also need a business development team to put together so people can go to universities. It's very challenging for me to be working at a university and to be reaching out to other universities. It's very, very challenging to do this. I've been doing all of this so my main job is 9 to 5. And then at night, you'll see everything goes on from 5 to 9, and I'm up late all the time. I'm sitting there with for the YouTube channel. I'm sitting there laying beside my son, trying to go to sleep, trying to get him to go to sleep because I've got a 12-year-old, and I'm trying to post these YouTube channels, YouTube videos, trying to do my best. And I need help at this moment. I need help with design. And I really, really am seeking advice and your thoughts at this moment in terms of where to go and where to take this. That's where I'm going to end this right now. I especially thank all of you for listening and paying attention. I know that this is a dry topic, but it's an unaddressed topic. And for me, it's a weird experience. I'm going to tell you that experience to walk around at a international conference now and have people come up to me crying. There's something going on here, and I need your help. That's it.
All right. Thank you, David. I think it was very informative. So I'm going to pick on a couple people. If does anybody want to chime in at this point before I start picking on you? Okay, Dan Ablo, I invited you specifically to this. Could you unmute and discuss your thoughts? Dan, are you there? I'm not hearing from Dan. All right, Jeremy Tootin.
So let's see. Did I manage to unmute?
You're unmuted.
Oh, good. You earlier in the presentation, you asked for a show of hands of PhDs, and I popped mine up briefly. So yes, I work at a national lab, and we have our own internal application process that you have to get through before you can even get the facility to agree to put your application out. And I'm wondering how much your process could be sub-focused to groups that have application processes like that. And if in a presentation like this, you have examples of some of the iterative process, some of the, this is what we started with, this is how this person was helped, this is how they improved.
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic if that was kind of, that was the model, was looking at this sort of learning process. So by the way, I should tell you what I do. I study learning, and I study learning from feedback, and I study learning from failure. So I am very well aware if you can get the feedback between the action and the outcome together, and you can get those closer together, then people get a positive response, right? They get positive emotions from that. So having something where there is having it where people are sort of wandering through and getting to the end on in a laboratory, that would be very, very helpful, I think. I'm not sure if it would completely replace your process, because if you look at a lot of the procedural stuff that's done right now, most of that stuff kind of assumes that you have all of your ideas together, right? It assumes that you know what you're doing, and then you get that negative feedback back, right, from your reviewers, whether it's an IRB review or whether it is from a grant. It's always negative feedback, right? Why aren't we processing this negative feedback to turn it more positive, so people are able to take this a little bit more using artificial intelligence and AI and gamification? That's my question. And I hope this platform is going to do that, where it feels fun and silly, right? To have the end product. The end product is really hardcore science, but it's fun and silly throughout it, where a lot of people want to participate on it, right? So that's how you might want to think about it to get to that end product. How do we encourage people to stay in science once they're in a master's program, right? The normal way that we incentivize people is we say, well, you know what, if you stay in this long enough and you grind it through, then you become the PI, and then you're going to be the lead PI, and then you're going to have all this fanfare and all this kind of stuff. So people are motivated for that reward at the end. But then there's all of this sort of gnashing of teeth that goes on in the scientific process. That's right now, it's a joke, right? We sort of laugh about it, that it was so tough, but why don't we change this?
I've seen the gamification of programming, where there are programming languages that make it very approachable for children to learn programming. MIT's got one, I can't remember the name of it. But I'm curious, so the National Lab has these massive programs to get high school interns, college interns, post-bac interns. And I'm curious if you've thought of connecting, not just from the researcher side, but from the institution side down, and seeing about linking in with universities or linking in with national labs or other facilities to push this as their process instead of more approaching the researchers.
I would absolutely love that. The reason why I haven't done that, it's me, and it's very hard to find, a development team. So if there's other people on this call that are interested in pushing this out as an entrepreneurial venture, I'm here. And that's the challenging thing, is when you're I'm in a small town. I'm not in New York. I'm in a small little town, and despite the fact that there's lots of innovation that's happening here, it's still a small little town. Finding people to do this is challenging. So thank you for raising that. I'm all ears if you've got solutions or ideas.
Yes, that's one of the things we're hoping to help accomplish here is, and I've already made some notes. I've got at least 3 people to put you in touch with, and they may not. One of them that I think you'd be interested in talking to presented on the forum. So if you get the opportunity, David, if you look at at Cope Notes, the presentation that they did on YouTube. And what that is that's basically a mental health support app. And it's incredible what they've done. And I can see how how this would relate to you.
Yeah, there would be overlaps, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
my other question too is part of the frustration is that would be credentialism and meritocracy. How do you address those? Because I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, that is,
I
yeah,
worked at the Naval
absolutely.
Research Lab, and and if your H score wasn't high enough, you just got shuffled to the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where, I'm a very much a realist. There is the sociology of science is a real topic. People study this, and it's hardcore science. It's getting published in Nature and Science all the time now, where they're actually analyzing and they see that there's these status effects. So I know that, there's more to this, but at the same time, if you were one of these hardcore scientists that played the status game, wouldn't you tell your student to go say, hey, you know what, this is garbage what you've written right now. Why don't you use the reciprocity platform? See if you can get it to it's a little bit more workable, and then come talk to me with this workable product.
Hey,
Okay.
Eugene.
Hey,
This is
how you doing?
Sunil Dixit. This is Dr.
Yes.
Dixit. So I was just wondering, does the gentleman have his app on GitHub?
So we're actually using Bitbucket right now. It's private at this moment, so we haven't made
So
it
there's some
any.
IP issues.
So it's being developed privately at this moment. So if there was people, if we wanted to change the model, I wouldn't be upset with changing it to make it more open source. But that would probably, we would have to, when I began doing this, I was thinking of, hey, why don't we have open source APIs and things like that, build that out. But we just, to be honest, I don't have the bandwidth and the resources to get there right now. We have a small development team, and I just can't afford to really push this out in all these different domains. So,
well, I mean, you'd get the entire world looking at your application.
Yeah, and I would love that. That's the thing. It's really the issue of bandwidth at this moment.
Okay. So I went through some of the things that you talked about when I did my graduate degree. Took me, and it was in particle and nuclear physics. So getting beam time was really very difficult at times to be able to do your PhD experiment.
Mhm.
And you actually had to have a very good experiment to be able to do something and get beam time. So those are some things that you probably need to look at what's been published, what is the technical need for your idea, and I mean, if it's already out there and there's variations of the same thing, then there really isn't very much need for it, right?
You mean in terms of sharpening the idea? The thing is, I don't know of any product that is very similar to this, right? There is a new one that's out that I've seen that they're sort of looking at and mapping Google Scholar, for example, to present that information in a kind of a library type way to get, access to the information. But there's not a lot where people are being walked through. Right. So the end product, again, is this mentorship. It's this, the master apprentice model a lot, where the master. So it's a little different in the hard sciences, right? So they have big labs, lots of people sort of working together. But in the not as hard of sciences, social sciences, that I'm thinking about, business, economics, political science. Which is a big domain, right? There's a lot of people that are in those domains, that there isn't this sort of walking through process. But also, if you're thinking about this, a lot of this is being done even in a large lab by graduate students. And wouldn't you want to take that workload off of the primary PI to say, hey, why don't you develop this idea a little bit more using a platform like this that will give you positive feedback and will incentivize you to keep going every day. right? There is, again, the number of PhDs that keep going, it's few and far between because it is a journey. It's a very difficult thing, right? So there's an emotional component that's going on there. And this is trying to change that just a little bit, make it a little bit more positive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I'd have to actually look at your application to really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously, you've looks like you've given the basic ideas. You've given us a 50,000 feet view. We'd like to probably get a better view of it.
Yeah.
Do you have the ability, David, to are you willing to put it in the chat?
Yeah. I don't know if I could do this. So I could show you some of the things. I could show you that.
Well, I mean, if you could put a link in the chat, because there's other people that want to talk. So.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Can we do that?
And then we can get, we can set up follow-on conversations with Dr. Dixit and others, Jeremy. But I'd like to move on to John Ellington.
So please log into the platform.
Ellington.
The front page is not great right now.
Okay. So John, you've been putting a lot in the chat. You mind unmuting and sharing your interest? No, it's not unmuting. You might be double muted. There you go.
Okay. I may be the oldest guy here. I'm an 82-year-old chief technology officer. I came at this from the 1960s, and I've been dabbling in the sciences, kind of around the edges ever since. I remember reading a book by University of Chicago physicist John Rader Platt. It was given to me by a cousin of mine, the first PhD aerial biophysiologist who designed the life support systems for Project Mercury and Gemini. And the book was called The Excitement of Science. And I got inoculated, and I've had the infection ever since. And Feynman kind of follows it up with the excitement of finding things out. And it's that sort of curiosity that has driven me. I found out 2 weeks ago, and a colleague was just awarded a patent in quantum random information generation without using mathematics or instrumentation bias. So kind of exciting stuff to be doing in your 80s, and the excitement is still there. So I'm kind of curious if your platform looks at anything that quantitizes motivation. I mean,
that's the basic idea. By the way, Richard Feynman, I read his biography, and it was really great. He has this quote, which I use all the time, where he used to say disregard. Why did he say disregard? Is because there's all of this other stuff that goes on outside of the domain of the excitement of science that you're passionate about, right? And that is demotivating. It's very difficult. So the more that we can actually connect this, and that's kind of the story behind the motivation component of it, right? Is how do we tell graduate students go and write a grant or write a research paper, and they're supposed to go on their own and go do this, right? Or if you have a good mentor, you work with a mentor and you draft this thing up, and 2 years down the road, you've got this grant or a research paper. But what if we had help throughout the process to connect that, so you do have that motivation? How many of you use Duolingo? Have you tried it? Nobody has tried Duolingo. It's learning a language. Learning a language is really tough. It's not very fun. And most people did not want to do it. And they've turned it into a cultural phenomenon now where I went on a cruise this summer, and on the cruise ship, you didn't get time to do there was downtime because the internet was down, and people were panicking because they weren't able to do their Duolingo to learn a language. In fact, that's where I want to take this, is to have it so it's fun.
Well, you have to learn, typically you have to learn a new context in any time you're out doing something new, because the meaning comes from the context. Just a little peripheral Feynman story. One of my college roommates actually sat in the classes at Caltech where the Feynman lectures came from. So that's my peripheral context with Feynman, other than my grandson's now at Caltech getting his PhD in astrophysics. Walking the same streets, but
wow, oh my gosh, what a privilege.
So I appreciate it. This has been interesting. I mean, it's kind of fun wandering down memory lane at this point, and seeing that there are still people out there, kind of pounding the dirt roads of science.
There's a lot of us that are still out there. Absolutely. So there's a couple of questions in the chat. Maybe we can address some of those. Oh, Jeremy's got a 2,735-day streak on Duolingo. Feedback works. Positive feedback works. It really, really works. And you want to do it, right? It's a very simple program, but you actually want to actually participate on that. Okay, so somebody had mentioned about Federal Labs page and mentioned Federal Labs.
So Zach, yeah, I want to go. Zachary, you had your hand up.
No, I just clicked that by accident.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Denise Smith, did you want to add to what you've been putting in the chat?
Hi, that's really out of my wheelhouse, but I've really, it's been interesting because I live in Utah, and so I appreciate that, David. We have a lot of young tech people here coming out of colleges, and so there is a lot of programmers here, and I've been going to a lot of pitches where they pitch their team, and there's a lot of people that want to start businesses and that are able to program and kind of work on that end of it. So I left a couple of resources there that might be helpful for you, David, because it does take a team. Certainly, it's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I would say maybe get on some of those sites, and as well as LinkedIn. I mean, you could kind of search like that. I've seen quite a few come out of Utah that are willing to be a part of a team, and that is their specialty, kind of programming, sort of what your needs are for that.
Very cool. Thank you.
That sounds like a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also David, so there's people that I'm working with. I mean, obviously Paige chimed in, and that would be a great opportunity to get tied in with the federal labs, and I think that was one of the things that Jeremy might have been trying to refer to is to implement or to make your system available to people that work at these labs and other universities as well. I mean, I could see, places like GTRI and, Southern Methodist and MIT, and where this would have major applications.
Yeah, so the challenging thing that I would need to get to have funding up first before being able to customize any of the stuff to specific institutions. I just don't have the funds. So if anybody's out there that would help subsidize or know where funding can be found, I'm all ears at this moment.
Okay, yeah, I can put you in touch, because this might be a good project for National Science Foundation, and I can put you in. I can put you in touch with people that can get you into NSF.
Yeah, that would be fantastic if you know of people.
Yeah, and there are some VCs, angel investors that we're tied into that I can pass this on to.
Cool. Yeah, I would deeply appreciate that. At this moment, it's I'm having a lot of conversations with my wife about what are we doing here?
Yeah, no, and that's why I wanted to get you on here, because I what we're trying to accomplish is similar, just in different worlds, and I hope that we can find some way that we can help each other out and work together to grow each other's platforms.
Is there any other questions or thoughts?
I'm not seeing anything.
All right.
So thanks, everybody.